good evening wherever you are on the planet. Welcome to the Kanika channel. This is my body of work that I breathe life into, and it's very powerful, a sacred geometry that we use to bring ourselves all the way home. So this particular channel is a lot about bringing ourselves and landing ourselves back in the body. And so we're going to get underway, inviting you to take a deep breath in. And let go. All right. So our journey today is with the sacrum. The sacrum is the sacred bone. It is the sacrum. It's the creative power. It is the kundalini. It is the divine center of the body. And as you can see here in our oracle deck, it is in the center there. Now, I'm talking to the sacrum today about the shaman's journey. So the shaman's journey is about reclaiming all of ourselves by moving into spirit and bringing spirit all the way back. And at the same time, one of the biggest issues is that there is a disconnect between the human and the earth. And when there is a disconnect, what happens is we can actually fall into addiction. Okay. And the way I want to kind of framework addiction is it is a unprocessed self-preservation, essentially. And at the core of addiction is a fear around being separate, being disconnected, being dislocated, not remembering who we are. And this is going to be a little bit of a controversial conversation, but I am doing my best. So if you call me out or call me in, as I say, then I will do better. And at the same time, I do want to be talking a little bit about the Aboriginal people, the river people, the tree people, the water people, the the First Nations, the Te Ao Māori, all of these places that have been dislocated from their original lands and how that is connected to the sacrum itself. But first, I want to speak into the sacrum and how, when it is blocked, what happens in the body. So the sacrum is a massively important bone in the body. And where Kanika doesn't just adjust bones, it actually gets to the core of the wound that is sitting in our bones. What we're doing is we are elevating the frequency that is happening in and through your body, and therefore through the human species. Because if we look to the sacrum being the sacred bone, the shaman's journey, many Indigenous healing practices work with bones, the sacrum included, because they remember that all of the ancestral trauma, all of the memories, all of the history is layered in the bones, right? This is the ancestral memory. And so just as we treat the land, we treat our body and we treat the repository of spirit and knowledge. And so if we are disconnected, if we are dislocated as such, what is happening is we tend to find ourselves in this, like I said, unprocessed kind of self-preservation. And so the sacrum will lock down. Now, the sacrum is the lymphatic pump of the body. Of course, we don't have a heart to pump the lymphatic waste, so our movement is really important. However, at the absolute base, it is the sacrum that allows for the movement of energy up and down the spine. So the sacrum is the kundalini center. It is the creative center. It is literally where we are able to move through time and space and call ourselves back to this location here and now. And what's happening on the planet is that because of this dislocation from our original lands, our whenua, and being kaitiaki of the lands, which is being a guardian of the land, what we have done is dislocated ourselves from Earth. And in doing so, we have literally dismembered ourselves from the mother. This is the heart of the matter meaning mother, right? So many humans are feeling dislocated. They are confused about where they are, how they show up in the world, and what their purpose is and what their inner power is. And so there's a lot of headbutting around the world, from Gaza to Ukraine to, the Aboriginal people, to the Native Indian Americans, the First Nations, the African people that are, referred to as the water people or the tree people. And a lot of this is causing this liquefaction, which I talk about on the planet. And if we look to micro and macro, micro being our bodies and macro being the earth body, what's happening is we are being called back into our soul's purpose, our soul's power, which is the solar plexus. And it's connecting with the sacral, which is our creative power. And our creative power comes from knowing our purpose. Now, sometimes we don't have to know exactly our purpose, but to know that we are here to create a shift, to create a change of consciousness, we have to move from the mind and where we try to control our external environment and come into the heart space. And this is us coming into a deeper alignment. So when we are separated from our lands, it's essentially the land begets landing, right? So when we are anchored in the land, we start to remember that we belong. We remember. We call back members of ourselves. We call back parts of ourselves. And this is what we do when we gift ourselves the permission to feel the width and the depth of our emotional body. But most people are afraid to let go of the control. And the sacrum is literally holding that lymphatic component around being the lymphatic pump, and knowing the lymphatic pump is the key to shifting old stories. Because if we look to the bones have blood moving through them, they have lymph. Right? And lymph is our rubbish. It's everything that's coming out. It's the detoxing effect of every cell in the body. The trillions of cells that are in our body need to detox. And if the lymph is getting stuck and the sacrum isn't working very well, what can happen is it can back up other organs. So if it backs up the pancreas, we're now going to have blood sugar issues. If it backs up the liver, we're probably going to have hormonal issues. If it backs up the spleen, we're probably going to have immune issues. And if we look at them on an emotional point of view, the spleen it refers to the law of manifestation. It brings energy in and allows it to create. Right? So if you are finding in some way in your business or in your life that you want something, but it's not landing, it's probably because the spleen is feeling out of sorts, right? It's backed up with lymph, but it's also not getting the nutrients it needs because now it's backed up with lymph. If the pancreas isn't working very well, we're probably missing out on some sweetness of life. We've lost the joy that's sitting there. And so the body is naturally craving sweetness in order to compensate for the lack of joy that's playing out, or the spontaneity that wants to play out. If it's the liver, then we're looking at a backup of everything that needs to be detoxed in the body. And so it's going to penetrate probably every cell in the body. But it's often related to feeling like we cannot totally process our entire reality, and specifically more so the past, right? And so we get a hormonal backup and we start to get angry or shitty liver, or our cortisol rises because our body is feeling toxic. Right? So there's all these things, and there's so many more with the sacrum. And so a lot of our work in Kanika is to do with the sacrum, because we get to the actual codex that's within the bone itself and release the beliefs and the stories and the old ancestral history that holds us back from being fully in purpose, in our fullest expression, and in our most clear and confident self. And so why does the sacrum have such a powerful impact on addiction? Is because if the sacrum is getting locked down, it's essentially locking us out of being in our body, right? Because the sacrum is the safety bone as well as the sacred bone. And in fact, in Indigenous peoples, they used to use the sacrum as the space to hold their incense, and it would be the storyteller. It would be a key anchor within a storytelling. And the storytelling is exactly what has occurred in the past in its journey to be of effect for the future, right? We have more impact on our past because we can change the way we view it and perceive it than we do on our future. But if we can alter the past through our perception, we embrace a much higher frequency of our future and the journey that this earth is going on into the golden age, the consciousness shift. Now, looking at it from the point of gene keys, if we look to gene key 24, which is literally the addiction gene key, we're looking at the neocortex. The neocortex makes up most of the brain, like over half of the brain, and it is anchored around perception, right? So for those who have been displaced from their land, and most of us have, even though there's original people on the land, they've been displaced, but there's also migration, which has displaced people as well. It's often that a move that the prefacing to that move was something that was often negative. It was either that there was overpopulation on that land, or there was a coup, or there was a threat to life, that person had to leave that land because the pressure to evolve wasn't there. There was obviously people who explored, but often more because there was a pressure to explore and evolve and find new ways forward. So, for example, a lot of the Australians and New Zealanders, the original generations, that came to New Zealand and Australia, were prisoners. They were actually pushed out of the United Kingdom. And so a lot of people are feeling displaced in the world. And often this, headbutting that is happening is that the sacrum doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel like it can land on the land and anchor. And so as we unlock the sacrum, what we're doing is creating a ripple effect of knowing that we actually live now in a global village, that the bones of this earth, which are the stones, the rocks, the tectonic plates, they are clearing out a lot of their lymphatic waste by having the Antarctica move a lot of water and release a lot of seeding on the planet, like crystalline seeding. And so what's happening is there is a shift that is happening within the sacrum. It is at the core, the primal wound, that deep separation or perception of separation that is throwing people into a fight energy, or possibly a fawn energy and giving things away, or a fear of being dominated or annihilated, right? And so the only way to get us through as a species is in and through our body, is to come fully home to ourselves. Because when we land, it begets landing. When we are on the land, it begets landing. But also when we are landing, it begets land actually elevating its frequency as well. Our bodies are the tuning forks. We call in the light that is coming onto this planet through the solar storms. And what that means is that when our body is a clear channel, it can anchor into the land, and this allows for the ripple effect to happen around the world without massive pressure releases. So we're seeing a lot more earthquakes, a lot more volcanoes, and that is literally where all of the anger, all of the pressure that wants to shift out of Mother Earth, because she is a sentient being, she's a conscious being, it is occurring, but it could be less. Like, we can actually navigate that by being a clear channel of ourselves, right? This is returning to our bone lineage and clearing the old stories that are connected to where is my true land and how do I anchor where I am and know that it is part of now a global village. Because this will have an impact. Even if you don't think it does in your business, it will, because we often close down a lot of our emotions when we don't feel safe, right? If you as a child were punished for feeling sad, or punished for being angry, or punished for feeling guilty, right? A lot of those emotions will then be something that you're not allowed to tap into as an adult. And that will mean that instead of your body releasing the emotions as they come up and are activated in your field, wherever you are in the world, whatever you're doing, it will mean that the body then goes and locks that down and goes, no, 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 I can't deal with that right now. I can't be in tears right now, or I can't process that right now. And instead of going away and processing it by yourself or with someone else, we tend to go, yeah, I'll do that another day. And so at the core of addiction is the mind, is the need to control situations. Where the sacrum, if we work with the sacrum and the connection to our heart energy, what we are doing is we are working with the physical being, and that is where matter comes into play. So we actually do start to manifest, or essentially attract, and it will be like the law of assumption, where I know this is going to happen for me and I trust it and I believe in it, and so it is. Then we naturally become the frequency identity to hold that capacity for that next version of you, the rebirth process. And so a lockdown in the control of the mind is literally where a lot of our addiction comes from, because addiction is a mind trauma, right? It's where I can't let go of control, right? It's an emptiness feeling. I can't let go of control, and so therefore I'm going to stay in my mind. That is the culprit. It is a disconnection from our body and the earth's body. And like I said, it's happening all around the world right now, where there are a lot of claims around land and everything, because once a person is disconnected from their motherland as such, it means that their body is feeling disconnected as well. They're not connected to the seasons. They're not running on their natural energy seasons, which is we go through summers, we go through winters in our bodies, and that is absolutely okay. But we've made it wrong. So a couple of things I want to offer you to support your body in bringing on its sacrum, which is that kundalini rising, like really lifting your vitality and coming into unity, is microhabits. So one of the things I do is I gather herbs in my garden and put it in a big jug and pour water onto it. I bless it, and then over the day I drink that. And one of the key herbs that will allow for the sacrum to unlock is rosemary. Now, rosemary is the remembrance herb. It is to bring about great spirits and to detox the liver. So it starts to clear, it allows lymphatic waste to clear, but it also remembers the good that comes from our ancestral gifts, right? We could blame our entire existence on our ancestors right now, or we could be proud of what our ancestors have done and keep moving and inventing from that place. One of the other things that's really important is silence. And I'm not talking sound silence. I'm talking silence as in coming into deep internal rest with the earth. Because there is always a frequency that is humming in the background of your life. If you are frustrated, there will be a frustrated frequency, and it will be down here. If you are in deep gratitude, that frequency will be a running frequency that you can listen to and hear with your whole body, right? And when we work with the sacrum, that shaman's journey, you're actually starting to see the other dimensions that are available to you when you shift in that frequency. And often all it takes is to smile and see yourself in the mirror and go, I love you, I'm proud of you, right? Even when it feels hard, because that's going to be a shift. It's a state that shifts, right? We come into these principles in order to land the micro habits in our life, because micro habits then become macro habits. And if we move from addiction, which is self-preservation and isolation, we come into silence, we come into common unity, we come into a space of freedom and internal freedom. And we actually come into a, I don't like the word pride, but it is. There's an element, I'm proud of myself, but at the absolute core, the biggest shift that we have when we really, truly make those micro habits and keep gaining interest on them, compounding interest, we trust ourselves. When we trust ourselves, we actually are more fully present in our physical body, which is holding all of these stories. We can't do this work through our mind. We cannot control the outside world. We cannot control everything that we're looking at right now, right, in the world. in the events that are happening, in the natural events, in the manipulated events, in the mainstream media. And so we get disconnected from our mother, which is the matter, which is our body, which is the body of the mother, the earth. And we forget to be kaitiaki, which is the guardians of this earth, and know that every step we take is an impact on the earth. And how are we going to do that in deep authenticity and integrity? Now, I'm not perfect, far from it, right? And I know that when we work with the sacrum, some of the most profound stories come out of that sacrum work. And below in the comments, you will find the sacral pump. We've had over 600 downloads in my Kajabi site for that specific video. And we've had feedback where women have literally been transformed and have remembered that that was a defining moment for them. They've come back and gone, when did my life change? And that was a defining moment. Why? Because the sacrum taps into the past and elevates the future. The sacrum allows us to clear all of those stories where we were pushed down, where we were dislocated, where we stopped remembering who we were. And one of the ones that I remember, one of the pieces of feedback I remember very vividly was a woman came back and said, I was thinking about when everything changed. And it was that moment of doing that sacral pump. And I asked her why. I said, what was the shift? And she said, you know what? I don't think I was ever allowed to have a temper tantrum. And in that process, I had a temper tantrum, and it was the best release of anger. And I shifted that deep, deep layer of rage, right? Because when we are dislocated from land, there is rage that is present because it is a dislocation from self. So with that said, some of the energies that wanted to come through, I always pick a few cards to go with the channel that wants to come through, but really understanding that when we work with the sacrum and we find ourselves in a deeper place of safety, there is always a shift, always. There cannot be a shift. We cannot not have a shift with the sacrum work. And that's why Kanika is so profound, because like hieroglyphs, all the coding on the pyramids, they're all stories, they're all codes to our stories, our storytelling. And the shaman's journey, which is the sacrum, is the storytelling from our past. Were we always told the stories that hurt, or were we told the stories that made us proud of our ancestors? And how do we bring those moments back into our reality while we're going through this dissolution of old stories with the land, right? Because it's a big one. It's a really big one. I mean, there's so many, trauma events around coming back to your land and what happened in the dislocation of your land. And so the energy that wanted to come through today that actually jumped out quite quickly was the King of Pentacles. Now, what I am taking from the King of Pentacles, because Pentacles is the element of earth, is this is the stewardship of our resources. How are we using our resources? And not only our resources on the land, but also our inner resources. Are we trying to fight? Are we trying to fight someone from our past? Are we trying to reclaim our energy or gather our worth from someone who took it from us? Because that's never going to work. War begets war. Hate begets hate. When we come into a state of deep radical forgiveness for ourselves, but also others, we're doing it for ourselves and the cellular makeup of this entire planet, for the unity. When we come into radical self-forgiveness and forgiveness for others, we are doing it from a state of there are resources for everyone. We've been told different because of the overarching, templating of some people being at the top and trying to filter down that everyone's separate. But that is not the truth. There are resources for everyone, and if everyone used them as needed and not in greed, not in taking, not in dominating, what we are doing is we are elevating our ability to be resourced on top of that, and then to resource others. And it is a ripple effect that happens through the planet. The other card that jumped out was the Seven of Wands, which is about boundaries, right? If you are finding that you are dislocated, there may have been a time in your life where you did not honor your boundaries out of fear of that person retaliating. And it's really, really important that your no is a no. Because if that person gets a wavering, maybe, not sure, then that person naturally is going to try and take that power. And it's not them consciously doing it, but on a subconscious level, they can see that you're wavering in your boundaries. They don't know where the boundary stops or starts. A full no is a very powerful way to reclaim your sacrum. A full no is a this is the end. So with that said, I hope this meets you well. I want to send you all the love in the world. Know that your sacrum is a really powerful portal. Check it out below. Pick that up and jump in to our Kanika Facebook community. But also, if you want to jump into our membership or find a practitioner of Kanika around the world, we also have retreats all around the world, and we would love to support you in this big process. It creates a powerful alchemy within your life, and obviously it's needed as a ripple effect for the world.